what is meant by alienation? Yes, to be separated, to be estranged, or to feel helpless in a situation. Now, in social sciences, this concept of alienation was used by Hegel. If you can recall, we noted while briefly talking about Hegel that the spirit is outwardly projected. And when the outward projection of the spirit is separated from its source, it gives the impression that external world has an independent existence. So here he used the word alienation, that when the projection of the spirit is alienated from its source. Later on, Feuerbach he made use of this concept of alienation. Now, if you can recall, Feuerbach was a young Hegelian. And what was the characteristic of young Hegelians? That they were using ideas of Hegel, but also modifying them and criticizing Hegel. So, according to Feuerbach, God is self-alienated man. इसका क्या मतलब हुआ? Feuerbach says that the qualities we attribute to God are actually human qualities. They are an ideal version of those human qualities which are considered desirable. All right. So when we are alienated from ourselves, we attribute those qualities to an imaginary entity called God. जैसे इस्लाम में कहते हैं अल्लाह इज रहीम, एक्चुअली मैन शुड बी रहीम. रहीम मीन्स केयरिंग, कंपैशनेट, loving. So man should be Rahim. But when man ceases to be Rahim, they think only God would be Rahim. These ideas of Feuerbach influence Marx. And in the manuscript that he wrote in 1844 while at Paris, economic and philosophical manuscript, it was in that he developed this concept of alienation as a sociological concept. He developed the concept of alienation as a sociological concept. Now, what does it mean? According to Marx, alienation is a socio-psychological condition. Alienation is a state of mind caused by social circumstances. socio-psychological condition. That means it's a state of mind shaped by social circumstances. Now, Marx starts by saying that in the beginning, man was alienated from nature. He had to struggle against a hostile nature to extract food and other resources from the jaws of nature. And therefore, man tried to develop the forces of production to tame nature, to gain control or mastery over nature. As the forces of production advanced and division of labor developed, alienation from nature declined. If I give you an example, जैसे agriculture develop हुई, so with agriculture you could produce lot more food than you needed. So your helplessness vis-a-vis nature declined. You became master of nature. So alienation from nature declined, but alienation was transferred into the social sphere. And as the institution of private property developed, social alienation also developed. Now, main focus of Karl Marx was on capitalist society. So he says in capitalism, both the division of labor and the institution of private property, they exist in their most developed form. Now, according to Marx, man is essentially a creative being. Man is essentially a creative being, and he realizes his essence and affirms himself in production, by participating in production. Production is a creative activity. Now, production leads to objectification of labor. What does it mean? That when we participate in production and contribute our labor, so we transform the raw materials on which we apply our labor. For example, this podium is made up of wood. So if I am a carpenter, I will spend a day cutting the wood and fixing it and making the podium. So my day's labor has become embodied in the podium. The labor takes the form of an object. This is what is called objectification of labor. So production leads to objectification of labor. And it is by participating in production process only that man finds fulfillment, satisfaction, realizes his essence. But under capitalist economy, this objectification of labor leads to alienation. Objectification of labor leads to alienation. How? Because the capitalist exercises control over forces of production. It is the capitalist who decides what is to be produced and how it is to be produced. And he decides this purely from the motive of profitability. It is not what worker would love to produce that is taken into consideration. The worker is the real producer, but he has no choice, no say in deciding what to produce or how to produce. And even the product of his labor is appropriated by the capitalist. See, as I gave you the example of the podium, that I work from morning till evening, contribute my labor, that is the only power I have. And that labor power gets embodied in the object. And the owner of the factory where I am working, he takes away the podium because he controls the forces of production. So I am alienated from the very labor and the product of my labor also. As a worker, if I am the worker, since the capitalist appropriates the product, as a result, my only power, labor, is siphoned off to the capitalist. And this is done only to satisfy my animal needs. What I get in return for contributing this labor are the wages. Now, wages are determined by rules of supply and demand. Wages are not determined in terms of my needs. As a human being, how much do I need? That is not the criterion for determining the wages. Wages are determined by market forces of supply and demand. So, all I get in return is a meager wage which is barely enough to satisfy my animal needs. However, in the capitalist economy, according to Marx, the condition of the worker is worse than that of an animal. Because No animal has to work for its survival at other animals' bidding. Like no dog enslaves himself to another dog to be able to survive. No cow would work for another cow. Only in the case of human beings, we work for another man only to satisfy our animal needs. We have no satisfaction in work. Work does not give any fulfillment. Work has no meaning except it is a means to end. Ideally, work should be an end in itself. Ability to perform labor is the distinctive quality of human being. Only human beings can produce. No other animal can. And participating in production gives us fulfillment. So work becomes a source of satisfaction. But because of the capitalist system, where worker has no choice and no say and no role in determining what to produce, how to produce, and has no control even over the product. So work simply becomes a means to an end and ceases to have any role in satisfying the creative desire of man. In addition to this, there is also social alienation. People are related to each other through contractual bonds and market relations. There is no compassion and fellow feeling among human beings. In a capitalist society. So the net result of all these forms of alienation is that man gets alienated from his self. Self-alienation. And according to Marx, self-alienation is manifested in the prevalence of religion. Self-alienation is manifested in the prevalence of religion. In his famous words, religion is the soul of a heartless world. Religion is the soul of a heartless world. Religion is the sigh of an anguished creature. See, out of suffering and pain, you cry for help to God. The sigh of an anguished creature. It is the opiate of the masses. It is the opiate of the masses. What does it mean, opiate of the masses? See, in the 19th century, Europe, opium was used as a painkiller. Even now, morphine is a derivative of opium which is given to the patient in severe pain. So, painkiller means symptomatic relief. Suppose I have pain. Now, pain is not a disease. Pain is the signal of a disease. That there is some problem in my body because of which I am experiencing pain. What does painkiller do? Painkiller, by benumbing your senses, makes the pain bearable. It doesn't solve the problem. The cause of the pain is not resolved. So, it's a momentary relief. For some time you feel all right, and once its effect wears off, the pain comes again. Then you take another painkiller. Same is the case with religion. When you go to worship the God, you get a sense of relief. That God is on your side and your problem would be solved. But the more you put in God, the less you retain of yourself. And the more you go to the worship, the more you have to go. If the God was to give you a solution to your problem, then one visit should suffice. After that, you should not go to the place of worship. But that doesn't happen. In fact, religion provides a justification for exploitation. It creates an illusion. Like in traditional India, it was believed that people in the lower caste are there because of their karma of the previous birth, which cannot be changed. And therefore, you should bear with fortitude your suffering and humiliation as a member of the lower caste. You should not aim to rise up and become a member of the upper caste. So it provides a justification of inequality. It provides a justification of suffering. They say poor will go to heaven, rich will go to hell. So this gives a momentary relief to the suffering of the poor, that someday he will also have his day. So it's false consciousness. And Marx believed that not only worker is alienated, even the capitalist is alienated. Because capitalist is also suffering from false consciousness. He also believes in unlimited desires and mindless pursuit of profit. Capitalist also seeks unlimited profit, continuously more and more profit. It is never enough. So, Ambani is the richest Indian, or Adani is the richest Indian, whoever, or both of them together are the top richest people. But they are not satisfied. They want still more. They want to be richest in the world. So, they are also suffering from false consciousness. Why do you need so much of wealth, which you can never consume in your lifetime? So, Karl Marx was like the child in the story. You know that story where some people came and they told the king that we'll make you a dress which only wise people can see. And they made a fool of the king. So king went around the city on sitting on an elephant, and everybody said, "Oh, king's dress is beautiful." Only a child said, "Actually, king is naked." So Marx's role was like a child in the story. That he was saying that even capitalists suffer from false consciousness. He is also alienated. Marx believed that this alienation would come to an end in the capitalist society. Sorry, in the communist society. I'm sorry. It is only in the communist society that alienation will come to an end. And a truly convivial means happy and playful life would be possible in the communist society, where everyone would work according to his capacity and everyone would receive according to his needs. So the ideal for Marx was a playful, convivial life where everyone enjoys working to the best of his ability and everyone receives as per his need. No one is driven by greed. Now, this concept of alienation has been adopted in sociology by other sociologists as well after Marx. According to Weber, there is alienation in modern industrial society, but the cause of alienation is not private property. The real cause of alienation is rationalization of life. That means there is advance in terms of formalistic rationality, but at the cost of substantive rationality. Yesterday I had explained both the terms to you. So there is advance in formalistic rationality at the cost of substantive rationality. And therefore, Weber said that even the communist society, if it is an industrial and rational society, even then there will be, even in communist society, there will be alienation. In fact, bureaucratization is the source of alienation. Bureaucracy or bureaucratic organization which involves compulsive conformity to rules leads to alienation. And in industrial society, whether capitalist or communist, bureaucracy is going to expand. Then C. Wright Mills has tried to adapt this idea to advanced industrial societies. C. W. Mills. That in advanced industrial society, tertiary sector dominates. You understand tertiary sector? Service economy, service sector. So, C. Wright Mills talks about alienation in the service sector. In the service sector, according to Mills, what is required for a worker is skill with persons, how to manipulate others by adopting a false personality. He cites the example of a sales girl in a departmental store. She smiles and greets the customers, but it is insincere. She is not really happy about them. She only pretends to be doing so. She puts on a false personality. She wears a mask which hides her true face. So it is, according to Mills, it's a personality market. Tertiary sector is a personality market where you sell your personality for monetary gains. So whenever at work, you are not your true self. Then Herbert Marcuse Marcuse. He wrote a book called One Dimensional Man. In that, he highlighted how there is alienation in advanced industrial societies. He says the division of labor has developed in such a way that the work in modern industries has become stupefying and exhausting. Now, often it is said that advanced industrial societies provide you more leisure. Leisure time has increased, like weekends are there for everybody, weekend holidays. So leisure time has increased. Marcuse says even leisure time activity sustain that stupefaction because it involves pursuit of false needs. Most common activity which people do in leisure time is going shopping. So chasing false needs. The only reason you work is you get money. And the only thing you celebrate your leisure is by spending money. So both work and leisure are equally alienating. Then Seeman has presented a comprehensive view of the concept of alienation. He says alienation involves 5 conditions. 1, sense of powerlessness, that you feel helpless in situation. There is nothing you can do about it, that kind of feeling. Secondly, meaninglessness. There is no meaning and purpose, no fulfillment, no contentment. Then isolation, loneliness. Then self-estrangement, not at peace with yourself. Woody Allen, in one of the comic strips, said, you know Woody Allen, no? No, an American comedian and writer and cartoonist. So in one cartoon strips, he said, you see, I am not my kind of a guy. That means I don't get along with myself. My kind of a guy means somebody like me. I am not like me. So that means I don't get along with myself. That is self-estrangement. And finally, 5th, normlessness. Because according to Seeman, normlessness is also social alienation. So he includes anomie within the concept of alienation. Now, Robert Blonner, he tried to relate alienation to technology. That how alienation varies or changes with technology. So he identified three types of technology. Craft, assembly line, and process technology. And in that he tried to see the degree of alienation in terms of four criteria, first four criteria given by Seeman: powerlessness, meaninglessness, isolation or loneliness, and self-estrangement among the workers. So for craft technology, he observed printing industry. For assembly line, automobile industry. And for process, refineries, chemical refineries, petroleum refineries, chemical industry. So he found that alienation follows an inverted U curve. It is low in craft and process, but it is high in assembly line because of very high level of standardization of work. Because of very high level of standardization of work. So this is how the concept of alienation has been developed after Marx.